back out at practice. We'll just see how he does in this ramp-up process. So haven't determined, play or not play. We're just going to ease him back in and see where he's at. Everybody else will practice and do their thing. Before the challenge of playing the Texans, we know records. You can put those things aside at this time of the year. This group here plays hard. They're well coached, and we've got to make sure that we have a good week of practice and get ready for them. So, with that, time's yours.
Coach, how close is Kadarius Toney to actually getting back on the field in live action for y'all?
Yeah, so he had a little bit of a ramp up last week, which was good. Came out of that feeling pretty good. So we'll see how he does this week and make a decision, down the road here. So take it day by day, if you want to put that. I mean, just see how he does.
Andy, with Patrick, the previous week you said he had to eliminate one dumb play a game, and this week he said he had a bad play with the interception. What are you guys talking about to try to eliminate those plays as you get into the stretch run?
Yeah, well, nobody likes to make those, but at the same time, you don't want to curb his aggressiveness and desire to make a play. So, because he made a couple good ones too in there. That's not going to happen very often with him. It happens with every quarterback, but they got to keep firing. I mean, you start getting hesitant, and then everything falls apart on you. So he'll learn from it and move on. It's pretty simple things that he can adjust to fix it. So, and that's how he's wired. I mean, he's going to go back and look at it, study it, and go, okay, got it under control. Here we go.
I know you often come out and say, hey, I got to give him better things. Patrick comes out and says, I got to make better decisions, right? But so it's obviously a joint effort between
Absolutely.
you guys and the whole staff and everything. But how obviously you get it right more than you get it wrong, right? You're not standing at that podium for this many years if you don't. But how often do you feel like oh wow, they got me? That you just have to tip your cap to the other coach?
Yeah, when I tell you that, I'm kind of tipping my hat to them. They're sometimes, that's the fun part. It's a chess match, and every once in a while they're going to get you, and you hope you get them more than they get you, and so there's some great minds in this league, and good football minds, and so they're going to get you every once in a while.
We're at the latter third of the season. Just I wonder, with you guys' pursuit of Juju the year prior, just what has he given the offense that perhaps you anticipated on his arrival and perhaps that you didn't anticipate?
Yeah, we were hoping that he could kind of counter Kels, and this offense is best when you can kind of do that. We had Sammy, and then Pringle developed into that as we went, and that's when it rolls the best. And so he's come in and done that, and does a nice job with it. So he's got a great feel for the game. He's got great feel in space, and then he's really tough to bring down. I kind of forgot about that part. After he gets that ball in his hands, man, you try to hit him in his lower body, he can shuck it off like a running back, and that's special to have that.
Coach mentioned McColl could be back. How did he handle these last 4 weeks behind the scenes, and what are the unique traits maybe you felt like you missed over that stretch?
And we lost a bunch of weight, and so it was a matter of kind of getting that back, but not, with cheeseburgers, right? But get back some good hearty weight and strength, and so he's been working on that. He's been working like crazy on that, and he's going to continue to do that here. He'll do that this week when he's out practicing and doing that. Okay, can we hold the weight and add a little bit to it? So,
Coach, you mentioned.
Patrick, I didn't get a chance to ask you after the game the other day about those stat milestones that Travis got. What do you feel like those say about him as a player?
Yeah, I mean, it talks to his consistency. Obviously, he's a great player, and we know that, and he's had this great run. But if you look at his career, he's just been consistently great every single year. And that tight end position is hard. You take a beating, you're blocking, you're catching over the middle, taking hits, and he just prepares himself the right way that he can be out there and available for us every week. So truly great player and a great teammate for sure.
You feel like those things mean a lot to him?
If they do, he doesn't even make it look like it, because I sit beside him on the plane and I said something to him about it. He was like, "Oh yeah, man, yeah, it's cool." He's like, all he's worried about is winning, and I think that's what all the great players are worried about. And the stats kind of come, but at the same time, he's just trying to win a lot of football games.
But your coach just basically said that if you do throw an interception, you will spend all week long looking at what you could do different, and review. So after last week's game, what have you kind of seen? Is there any kind of something you found yourself in a pattern, or what you've observed?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just more of me just taking what's there and not trying to force it. If it's not there, throw the ball away, especially when we're in field goal range. And then when I'm trying to dirt the ball, don't leave it where the guy can get his hand underneath it and pick it. So it's just a couple bad mistakes throughout the game. But when you look at the tape, I thought I played pretty good other than those 3 picks. So just trying to clean those up.
Patrick, I think this is the first time you will have played in Texas, and I recognize it's quite a bit of distance from where you're from, but still, does that mean anything to you? Do you have extra people coming because of that or anything?
Yeah, I have a couple extra people coming. But yeah, it's the first time I'm playing in the state of Texas, and I went to the Cowboy Stadium my first year, and when we played down there, and didn't get to play, but to get down to Houston, I mean, it's like a 3-hour trip, 3.5-hour trip from Tyler, Texas. So I'm sure there'll be more people than I even know that are coming down to watch the game. But it'll be cool to kind of see some people and they'll get to see me play in my home state for sure.
Patrick, how impressed are you with the Andy Reid's play design when it comes to the screen game, and what do you think goes into having such success with that for you guys?
Yeah, I think we just do a great job of tying plays together. I think that's the biggest thing is we make it all look like it's the same, and when he's just really good at calling it, the timing. I mean, it seems like every time he calls a screen, it's on a pressure, and it's called right into it. So it's a thing where the coaches do a great job of designing it and tied it all together, and then Coach Reid does a great job in EB of calling.
Hey, good morning from chilly Kansas City. Welcome to SportsBeat Live. This is our weekly conversation about the Kansas City Chiefs. And we do that with the folks in the media who know the best, and they work for the Star, thankfully. It's Jesse Newell, Herbie Tiopi, and Vahe Gregorian. We want to hear from
amazing
you.
Coincidence, Claire.
It is. It really is. And every week, I just shake my head in wonderment that join us with your questions and comments and ask Vahe, Herbie, and Jesse a question. Sam McDowell couldn't join us today. Of course, he'll be back soon. So, guys, as I put out on a tweet promoting this show a little while ago, Chiefs riding a 2-game losing streak as they go to Houston on Saturday. Been tough for the Chiefs. You know, it's been a long time since they lost 2 in a row like this. And wait, hold on. What am I hearing? Oh, they won Sunday. I'm told now that they actually won that game on Sunday at Denver. I kind of have to check my notes here. But yeah, they ended up winning 30-28 over the Broncos. We'll talk about the Texans and we'll talk about the Broncos game. But first, Herbie, what's the latest on McCole Hardman and in the injury update? And how did Patrick Mahomes end up on the injury list this week?
Yeah, we'll start with Mahomes because that caught everyone by surprise. But the good news is he talked to the media,
and he practiced fully, because as we know with the Chiefs, if somebody is not practicing fully, they're not talking to the media. So that leads me to believe this isn't anything major, but it is a right hand injury. As far as McCole Hardman is concerned, his 21-day window to return from injured reserve officially opened Wednesday with his appearance on the practice field. So the Chiefs can take all the way up to 21 days or anywhere in between that. So will he be active for Sunday's game? You know, we'll do the old Andy Reid. Yeah, we'll see. So it's really going to depend on how much he's able to do and if the Chiefs want to bring him back now. And the other guy is Kadarius Toney. I was kind of surprised to see him put in a limited practice on Wednesday because, over the past week, the Chiefs do a ramp-up period, and he was limited all 3 days last week, so it wasn't a surprise when he was inactive against the Broncos. But starting off the week as a limited participant along with Najee Johnson, their rookie defensive back, that's a little concerning for Toney. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens here Thursday and Friday if he'll be available on Sunday.
No, Andy Reid said that one of the issues for McCole as he returns is he needs to put some weight back on. I need to get on that McCole Hardman diet to drop a few pounds here. All right. Chiefs win at Denver on Sunday. I thought the conversation most of the week that I've heard centers on the defense and especially the young cornerbacks, and we'll get to that as well. But I want to actually start talking about Patrick Mahomes and the game that he had, and we got to hear from him yesterday in his weekly meeting with reporters, and I like what he said. You know, I think we played a little bit of it before we went on the air here, just to remind you that he thought he had a good game, except for the 3 interceptions. I think that's a pretty nice way of putting it, Vahe, that it was a pretty good overall game for Mahomes, but it was his third straight game under 100 in passer rating, and because of those interceptions. And those interceptions actually put the Chiefs in harm's way in that game. The two right before at the end of the second quarter, I thought were totally responsible for flipping the feel and momentum of the game. And that third one, kept it interesting in the end. Those were just so uncharacteristic. Only the third time in his career with 3 interceptions. Interestingly, the Chiefs won 2 of those 3 games. The one that didn't win was the crazy game in LA against the Rams, where the Chiefs still scored 51 points. But you wrote about Mahomes and his game. And we didn't get a chance to talk to you after the game, so I just wanted to get your overall Patrick Mahomes reaction to his game and what he said this week.
Yeah, I mean, it's not quite like the old joke about, other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how'd you enjoy the play? But, the 3 interceptions obviously is the glaring thing. What is also actually completely true is that other than those 3 plays, he really did have a pretty good game. And what I think is notable, we've seen this all along, right? I mean, he's always so eager to talk about his mistakes. Even Sunday, I kind of asked him an open-ended question about, he seemed to be exhaling as he came to the podium, excuse me, and he instantly goes, right into the interceptions. And I think what's also interesting, though, is him using the phrasing you just said a moment ago, Blair, where he is pretty cognizant of, this isn't the sort of game to make you lose your confidence, right? It's the sort of thing that gave you a couple more teachable moments. We could look back all through his career and see that he'll be quoted saying, I just need to know what that fine line is. Most of the time, he has a pretty uncanny knack of knowing that fine line. Sometimes, there's some sort of brain cramp or miscommunication. Even on Sunday, he got a little bit into how, he knew that he forced the first one to Kelsey, but they got out of, he basically broke a rule of how to determine whether to let the ball go there and try to bring Kelsey back in front of somebody. The second one, we know he was trying to throw it in the dirt and he just didn't execute it properly. And the third, as he said Sunday, was bad. And that one to me was kind of the more mystifying of them all, because he'd already had those two in his muscle memory, and then forcing it in that situation. But look, I think that last little thing in this burst is that I asked him the last question after the game was whether he thinks just with it's human nature, once you get up 27-0, if something can psychologically change a little bit. And I thought it was interesting that he said it shouldn't be, but he didn't say it isn't. And so I think there's a little of that, that all goes into this blender of how that happened. So I'm trying to think back to how you actually phrased the question and whether I answered any of it. But that was my thought about his game. I think he'll be fine.
Okay, so yada. I think he'll be fine.
I didn't say anything about Fisk. All right. Okay.
Okay. Listen, his team scored. The offense scored 27 points. There was a defensive touchdown. He threw for 350, whatever it was, and this was against the number 2 defense.
Number 2.
In the NFL. The Broncos' problems are on offense, and that's why we'll end up talking about the Chiefs' defense here in a little bit. But I don't know. Listen, it is 3 interceptions, which gives him 11 for the year, and he's thrown an interception in 8 of the 13 games. The Chiefs absolutely have a turnover problem. They're underwater in turnovers, and that's usually not the sign of a championship level team. The Kelsey fumble against the Bengals was obviously the critical moment in that game a week earlier. And then, of course, Mahomes' picks in the Broncos game kept the game closer than we all thought it was and probably should have been. But so, Jesse, what do everybody can say that they're dedicated to, every team can say they're dedicated to preventing turnovers and getting turnovers, but this Chiefs team seems to have a bit of a turnover problem.
Yeah, I'll actually disagree. So
of course you will.
I will. That's what I do. I wrote this story last year about this NFL team who started off 3-4, and everybody said they had a turnover issue, and this was going to cost them, and they couldn't overcome it, and their quarterback was turnover prone, and he needed to be better, and that team ended up as the AFC champion in the AFC Championship game, hosting a game where they were favored by 7 points. That team was the Kansas City Chiefs because turnovers are fluky. They just are. And it's hard to wrap your mind around. I talked to Ben Baldwin, who's a great follow on Twitter for people out there. He writes for The Athletic, contributes, but does a bunch of number stuff. And it's really hard to wrap your mind around this. But yes, turnovers are caused by people who shouldn't have had that happen. So we can say, yes, Patrick Mahomes deserves blame for the mistakes he made in this past game against Denver. What they aren't is basically a predictor of what's going to happen moving forward. And we saw that with the Chiefs last year when everybody thought they had a turnover problem. They didn't have a turnover problem. It's not sustainable, basically. It's not something you're going to bank on every single week. You need a huge sample of time to basically say a team is turnover prone or not. Turnovers is one of those things that's just kind of fluky year to year, other than teams who are really, really dedicated and really, really good at it. So the Chiefs not having or creating many is kind of fluky. I mean, you expect that to probably go up here, especially against these bad teams that they're going to be facing here in the next 3 weeks. But I would also just venture to say that I'm not worried about Patrick Mahomes. The sustainable thing that they do is when they get a first down, they get another first down. And when they get that first down, they get another first down. They usually turn that first down into a touchdown eventually. That's what they do better than anybody else in the NFL. And that week to week is something that you see correlates. And that's something that the best of the best offenses have. And that's why when you throw 3 interceptions, you still win games against some of the best defenses in the NFL because you continually get first downs and move the football down the field. So if you're a Chiefs fan and you're looking at this offensively, again, I hate to just shoulder shrug everything with Patrick Mahomes, but I'm shoulder shrugging this. This is not a big deal to me. He had games like this last year. This is where people had doom and gloom. And this is where at the end of the year, they didn't have those turnovers. They became a much better football team. They made it to the AFC Championship game. Could it pop up in a playoff game? It could. I mean, that's possible. It's always possible. But am I worried about Patrick Mahomes? No. I was listening to the guys on PFF talk about this game, and they were saying exactly what you said earlier, Blair. They were much more impressed by the Chiefs' offense ability to continually drive against a really good Broncos defense than they were concerned about Patrick Mahomes' 3 interceptions. I'm on the same boat there.
Well, I'll say that you mentioned the AFC team that got to the AFC Championship game after having starting the year with all the turnovers. Big moment in that AFC Championship game was a Mahomes interception in the second half against the Bengals. There is no team. I'm sorry. There's one team in the NFL that has a better turnover ratio than the Chiefs over the last 10 years, and that's the New England Patriots. So the Chiefs obviously emphasize this, that takeaways, giveaways. They've done a good job historically. I don't know. I think of it as I think turnovers are a trendy thing, not a hip, cool thing, but they tend to be fall into trends. And when a team starts turning the ball over, I don't think they can turn it off like a faucet. Those, for some reason, those continue. And the fact that Mahomes is one interception away from matching. No, I think 13 is his career high from a couple of years ago. And the fact that Chiefs have lost a couple fumbles in their losses this year, right? The Colts game, where the biggest momentum swing in that game was a Sky Moore fumble, and you guys will have to help me remember the Buffalo game if a turnover played a big role in the Bills' loss. But the Kelsey fumble against the Bengals, it just takes one. It just does, and part of the reason for the small margin of error in that department is the Chiefs' defense and the way that it has played. And Herbie, let's start with you on this. We're seeing the result of a team that drafted 3 cornerbacks this past year and play them, and a team that plays those 3 drafted cornerbacks, aren't we?
You're seeing that, but I look, I'm going to agree with Team Jesse a little there on the turnover part, because when I think of turnovers and Patrick Mahomes, I go back to a guy that Andy Reid was around a lot in Green Bay with Brett Favre. Favre obviously threw the most interceptions in NFL history. So you take the greatness, and what's going to come with the ugliness, and that's what you're seeing with Patrick Mahomes right now. He is going to throw some interceptions, but you just take it, because Mahomes is one of those guys that I call the ultimate erasers in the NFL. He can absolutely erase mistakes with some other significant plays. But when you're talking about the defense, and I know people are up in arms right now against the Denver Broncos, that first interception put the Chiefs defense in a bad spot, because that interception came on the other side of the 50. The second interception also gave the Broncos another short field. You're going to live and die with young cornerbacks. Okay, that's just the nature of the NFL. It's just how they're going to react on the next play, how they're going to react in the next game. I think Justin Reed yesterday said it best when he said, yeah, we do have young, I'm paraphrasing here, we do have young cornerbacks, but it's their ability to listen to the veterans and learn from their mistakes. And that's what you're going to have to count on going down the road here with 3 young corners.
Andrew has a comment on this I'd like to go over, because I am all 22 guy a little bit. So I kind of wanted to see how the Chiefs, where they went wrong when they got down 27-0 in that game. And I think Spags is in a tough spot here, because when the Chiefs got up 27-0, they went a lot to zone coverage. And we talk about them being young in the secondary. Those guys did not react well to going to zone coverage, especially from what I saw. Jalen Watson was dropping way too far back and leaving some of the easy passes in the flat open when he was the flat defender. So those are sorts of things that are kind of tough. And then when you start to have crumbles like that, you start to have guys that maybe try to do too much. They follow their own guy out of a zone because they don't trust who's over the middle. And that sort of thing fell apart. So when they didn't have that, it's sort of like everybody's talking about, oh, Spags blitzes all the time. Well, I think he went back to man coverage, which is what he's more comfortable with, or what the guys are more comfortable with. And a lot of times when you have man coverage, you obviously have blitzing, because you have some extra guys that you need to figure out what to do with. So I'm in agreement with Herbie there. I think a lot of this is just the young secondary and what they're going through right now. But I think it was pretty discouraging for the Chiefs defense. This is the time of year when you need to sort out those things. And you feel kind of scared about rookies week 4, week 5, week 6. But as the playoffs come here, you need Jalen Watson to know where he is. You need Joshua Williams to start to understand leverage. And on the first Jerry Jeudy touchdown, get him a step further toward the sideline so the sideline can be your friend and not allow him to make a catch when he gives a little bit of push off on you. So the Chiefs have made their decision here. They are going to run with these guys. That's all they have on their roster, basically, is these young secondary players. That means they're fast. That means they're physical, all these sorts of things. And I think Joshua Williams has been pretty good being around the football, but now those sorts of technique things need to come to fruition, because those things need to be the next step, so that these things that are right now touchdowns turn into incompletions, turn into, hey, the guy's out of bounds. And same thing with Jalen Watson. Just understanding your assignment, understanding when you're supposed to drop and not giving up easy passes. What happened then, as you saw, when the Chiefs went man, when Spags went to man in some blitzes, they threw the screen pass over him. They got the big touchdown that way. Also, Russell Wilson had a bunch of scrambles. We see Patrick Mahomes do this against man defense. You see man defense, nobody's open, you take off running because everybody's back is turned. So interested to talk to Spags today to hear kind of what he says about the man versus zone stuff. But I thought it was discouraging. Usually with a 27-0 lead, you're going to go to the safe call to the zone. It wasn't very safe for the Chiefs this week because some of the guys were not in the right spots.
I'd add, to me, the most disappointing moment from the rookie group of cornerbacks was the Trent McDuffie penalty, where he got turned around on a bit of an underthrown ball by Russell Wilson and did not get his head turned around, which caused him to run into, was it Jeudy? I don't remember who the receiver was, but it turned out it was a fourth down play too, right? And ended up being a 46-yard penalty. Is that right? I can't remember. Did it at least set up?
It was the fourth. It was the 4th and 4, I think, and then that led into the 2nd and 34. That might have instead been a 3rd and 24 if it hadn't taken that penalty. A couple things like that. But that play, Blair, was, I mean, as pivotal as it gets in just the last sequence of the game.
Yeah, I just had seen McDuffie in a different light than Watson and Williams. Just understanding where they were drafted and what my expectations were, and that's a big mistake that McDuffie made, and hopefully he'll learn from that.
Yeah, and
just one quick. Go ahead, Jess.
Well, and I'll get to you. Yeah, you take off after this. I will be more Team McDuffie than that. I think he's been good since his return. That penalty, obviously, probably a 50-50 call, if we're honest. One of those where even the announcer was kind of talking about, is that really a penalty? I guess it is when you're at home, those sorts of things. I think he's been good, but they do need Joshua Williams to step up, because we know Joshua Williams has the height. They've been kind of keeping those guys separated, and Joshua Williams is the one who's drawing the Jamar Chases, the Jerry Judys of the world. So they need him to come into his own here. And McDuffie has been locking down the other guy a lot of the time and understands his own responsibilities pretty well, it seems like, from watching film. But they do need one of those other guys to emerge. And like I said, it was not the best game for Joshua Williams and Jalen Watson this past one.
Just one quick thing on McDuffie on that. I think it was the first pass of the game by the Broncos, the ball that went off his face mask. As it happens, Justin Reed acknowledged yesterday that he deflected it a little bit, and Trent said that he didn't even know if it was deflected because he couldn't see it, the ball coming down past Justin's hands that were outstretched. So I bring it up just because I think some people just sort of thought, oh, what a clumsy thing, and it wasn't really that. So, grain of salt there. Might have been a turnover if that had just, been a little different. Would have also made us look at the defense a little differently, just a little thing like that.
See how fluky turnovers are, Blair? See how fluky they are?
I see Andrew. Go ahead, Vi.
Oh, just one last quick thing. This is not just, I'm not saying I'm any more concerned about Patrick than I was before. I'm not. But it is interesting, those 13 interceptions last season, I think it was last season, right? With 13. I think 8 or 9 of them, at least 6 or 7 of them were deflected, which, sort of made those seem a little different. I can't recall one of those this year that was deflected.
I think Andrew's got it right on here too. I think if you're a Chiefs fan, and this happens around this area, and I think it's a benefit to being around this area, because I covered KU ring the bell. But I covered KU for a long time, and people get very connected to their players and wanting them to be perceived nationally as they perceive them here. But Andrew talks about the case for MVP. I think that's exactly what a lot of this narrative has been, is that Chiefs fans have been propping up Patrick Mahomes for good reason for MVP. I think he's the MVP of the league, but now Jalen Hurts has taken over as the favorite with that. And I do think the interceptions will hurt him because, I've done these awards before. It's really hard. I mean, you have to take some face value stats to look at these things, compare them across the board. And that's why Jalen Hurts, to me, has moved ahead of him, is because, you look at the interceptions, and that is going to be a mark on Patrick Mahomes if you look at this toward the end of the season. So that's probably disappointing for Chiefs fans because, again, up until a couple weeks ago, he was considered the heavy favorite. And like I said, I still think he is the best player in football right now. But that is going to be something he's going to have to overcome here the last few weeks, is seeing that number alongside his name and having those mistakes on his ledger.
I think Mahomes has a chance to rally too in the race, because I do think that the perception is Jalen Hurts is ahead of Mahomes, has pulled ahead of Mahomes in what seems to be a two-person race. So I think there's an opportunity for Mahomes with the remaining schedule for both players to get back into the lead on this. And you're right about Hurts. That offense doesn't produce a lot of interceptions. Hurts, I think he has 3 or 4 this year or something, and he's got a really nice passer rating because of that.
Hey, if Mahomes is calling you to tell you he's on Team Jesse, you can pick it up, Blair. It's okay.
Hey, just as an aside, Vahe, you were there and Jesse watching it. Were you surprised that the Chiefs took the penalty in the Broncos game to turn a 3rd and 24 into a 2nd and 34?
In the moment, I wasn't alert enough to think, boy, this is a dumb decision. But really, if you just break it down to those two scenarios, do you want 2nd and 34? Do you want 3rd and 24 in that situation? How significant is field goal range? All those kinds of things. I think the bigger threat was there any ability they would have at all to convert a first down, right? And to me, 3rd and 24 is what you'd rather have. Blair and I were talking about this the other day, Jesse. I don't want to air dirty laundry in public, but we find ourselves thinking quite often about all the sharp analysis that what we might call the younger generation, such as you and Sam, are capable of coming up with. So, we're all ears to what you see there.
I'm in complete agreement. If we want to talk about things, look, I think there are things that I get upset about or that I think are wrong that are criticisms of Andy Reid. I think people saying he throws the football too much, I think that's a feature, not a bug. I mean, throwing the ball in the NFL is great. And if you have Patrick Mahomes, it's really great. So him throwing the footballs a lot is great. Good job, Andy. He should be praised for that, not criticized. A lot of the short yardage, him being cute. I hate his criticism of that, or getting criticized for that, because the Chiefs have been really good in the red zone for a long time, and they utilize all their weapons, and they do creative things. I hate that criticism. The one I think he absolutely deserves it for is some of these things we're talking about. And to me, that's probably something that could bite them more than a turnover or a wave of turnovers in the playoffs, that sort of thing. We've been talking about this all year. Sam McDowell, our colleague, has been on it all year. 4th down decisions, field goal decisions, not going for 2, up 12 late in the game when potentially, and you just said it, Vi, you're completely on it. Moving back 10 yards to try to move them out of field goal range when you're up 12 is ridiculous. There's no moving them out of field goal range. They're not going for a field goal. You know what I'm saying? So making it 3rd and 24 is the smarter play there instead of 2nd and 34, where something weird can happen to your defense. Sure enough, with the Chiefs, something weird happened with the defense over the next 2 plays. So the next 3 plays. So yeah, I'm with you guys. I don't know. I've sort of gotten to the point. I think this is just what you get with Andy Reid. There's so many positives. He's such a great coach. He's such a great offensive mind. He's so good with his players in the locker room. This is just the bug right here. He needs somebody on his headset. He needs somebody to hire for $100,000 a year. Maybe Sam McDowell. I mean, don't take him from the star, but maybe Sam McDowell to tell him what he should be doing in these situations so he's not so far behind the rest of the NFL. But his answers this week, his explanations for this were short and they weren't good enough. They just weren't. He said that he thought about field goal range. It's what you said, Vi, and had a really short response. And it's just those are costly. They're costly in the margins. They're small, costly, but they're costly nonetheless. So I would say if there was one criticism, again, I just told you all the things Andy Reid does well. There's a big laundry list of them. The one thing he doesn't do well is listen or have somebody in his ear in those situations. Could it cost the Chiefs in the playoff game? It could. And maybe it will. I don't know the answer to that, but I do think the Chiefs are behind the NFL when it comes to those decisions. And that was another example of it in the Denver game.
Just to elaborate on your point, Jesse, and you mean this figuratively, less than literally, but he does have somebody in his ear, and we're not privy to the I'm not doing that or whatever, however that monologue dialogue goes. But it would be obviously a fascinating thing for our audience and also for us if we could ever get anybody to really elaborate on how those dynamics work. But that's the thing that's very interesting about your point. I mean, they've got that going on. By the way, I like the set of things you describe as features versus bugs. I basically disagree with them all. I would like to work out the Mike Burton bug.
Let's do this one. I'm ready. Let's do this one.
And actually, it's not so much a Mike Burton bug as a 3rd and 1 plunge bug.
You know what their success rate was?
Blocking. Go ahead, say Jesse.
Yeah, what was their success rate on it last year? Do you want to guess? They did 11 times.
I think it was really high last year, like 100%.
11 for 11. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and this year it has not been that.
It is not, but I think we're speaking to probably more execution than we are. Again, if a play works 11 out of 11 times last year, we weren't all running out to write about it, I guess, except for me, because I did write about it in June and talk to Mike about that particular play. Listen, the reason that play works is the Chiefs have maulers, right? They've got Trey Smith, they've got Creed Humphrey. Those two guys bulldoze those guys on the side, and then you hand it off to Mike Burton real quick. He gets the yard. I haven't looked at that play specifically to see why it went awry, but again, it's hard for me to criticize a guy for running a play that was 100% last year. Now, can you move off of it now? Potentially, yes, absolutely. You can look at film, but I do think there is more to just dumb play call rather than, hey, look, there's play call, there's execution, and you can do the right thing and call the right thing and not have the guy do the right thing. And then those can both be, we can talk about both of them. You know what I mean? So this isn't throwing it on Creed Humphrey or Trey Smith. I haven't seen the video, but I'm just saying that there's more aspects to this than just dumb play call. And if it was a dumb play call, it wouldn't have worked 11 out of 11 times last year when they really needed it in those situations. And frankly, when the whole building still knew it was coming last year, the Chiefs were able to execute and still get that yard.
Well, one thing you didn't say this in that burst, but I know you can speak eloquently to it too. But even as you studied it last year, it's call, it's execution, but it's also wrinkles, right? I guarantee you that the blocking scheme is not exactly the same on each way they've done that. I mean, I shouldn't say I guarantee you, but I assume that there's plenty of little subtle nuances in that wouldn't be apparent to the naked eye. So anyway, it's interesting to think about and talk about.
I would say the one subtlety I would say that the Chiefs probably have going better for them this week, potentially, depending on what Herbie was talking about with them getting McCole Hardman back, is that perimeter threat. You know, you can put a guy in motion. You have to think about that. But if the Chiefs do not have Kadarius Toney and they don't have, McCole Hardman on that particular run, it does give you one less thing to think about. So, again, I'm a little bit more lenient on the Chiefs on this one just because how many times we laughed last year in the press box because everybody in the stadium knew it was going to Michael Burton. It went to Michael Burton. They gained 3 yards. So that's because the Chiefs line is really good most of the time. And for that play, whatever, again, I wish I'd watched the all 11, all 22 getting ready for this one on that particular play. But for that one, for whatever reason, it didn't work. And I think both things can be right. You know, this can be a good play call for the Chiefs because of their good players, but also could be good execution that they didn't have this particular time. So I'm not ready to punt it from the playbook, and go as far as to say that we'll probably see it here at some point in the future, maybe not for a couple of weeks to get a little time to rest.
I think we'll see a little play action off of it in the future as well, just because everybody does know it's coming. All right, guys, great conversation. We got to about a third of what I've got listed here, but that means it was a great conversation, and it always is with Jesse Vahe, Herbie, and Sam McDowell. We'll do it again on Sunday after the game. A programming note, we're going to, in some cases, it happened last week and it's going to happen this week as well. We'll be on somewhere between 30 and 45 minutes after the game and not the usual 2 hours or so. It just works out. Sometimes it just works out better for us to do it sooner after the game rather than later. So if you're watching now, join us again on Sunday, probably in the 3:30. It's a noon game, right? So 3:30, 4 o'clock is when we'll come on the air and talk about what we just saw. So for Jesse, Vahe, Herbie, and our producer, George Howard, thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys on Sunday.